Hey everybody, and welcome back to Keeping Your Business on Track. We're here to bring you the inspiration and education you need to elevate your real estate or mortgage business. Lindsay, what's up? What are we talking about today?
Oh gosh, well, we've got a few questions on the docket for you today. I think most of it's going to be personal opinion, if that's okay with you.
Yes, opinion's better. Because I can give you my opinion all day without much preparation.
Perfect. So obviously we're coming to year end and going into 2023. So I think we can all agree there was a pretty big shift in the market this year. So when we're all coming through the fog of coming up to the year end and going into a new year, what happened over in 2022? What happened and what do we attribute it to?
You know, I'm laughing, but 2022 was an extraordinarily challenging year. You know, it's such a juxtaposition to the end of this year is a big difference from where we were at the end of the last year and where we started this year. You know, and really, if you look at it, we started off the year very strong, and we expected that. Rates were still low. 2020 and 2021, rates were at historic lows, interest rates, right?
Everything was still on sale.
Everything was still on sale. When we start the year, rates were still low. People were still refinancing their loans.
Right.
People were still buying houses, and so many people were buying houses. As you well know, it's like every listing had like 30 offers. They were taking, if you came in under list, they would not even understand.
They would laugh at it.
It would laugh, yeah.
It was laughable.
It was laughable.
Yeah.
And then, you know, there's offers. I heard offers coming as much as $300,000 over list price.
Right.
40% higher than list. And I'm like, this is insane. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it was fueled by low interest rates. Real money, this is the big difference between now and 2008. You know, real money, a lack of supply and a huge demand. Right. So it started off very strong. And then as, you know, the rates were down here, demand was up here. And we started to see a shift where the rates were coming up and demand was slowly, you know, trailing off. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of stuff in the media, you know, that's saying things like, you know, the mortgage crisis and the real estate prices are going to crash. And that's just not going to happen.
Right.
But we saw all this negative news out there, but the rates really drove consumer, the demand way down. Now, supply has increased, but we're still well below normal numbers. So as we shifted from a seller's market, you know, when there's 20 offers on every property.
And your real estate agent's actually showing property just through their phone and a camera, sight unseen offers. Yeah.
We saw technology get used, a lot of the Matterport, the pictures, all these things. Instead of people were putting offers in on properties they had never actually been to and seen the inside of.
Crazy. It's absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah.
But.
So the shift, like you said, we shifted from a seller's market to more of a buyer's market. And I don't think we're even in a full buyer's market yet because the supply is still low.
Mm. So with that being said, what effect do you think that this is going to have in the next, I would say specifically first quarter, second quarter, so maybe 6 months in our industry?
So I think January, at the end of this year, we hear a lot of people saying, well, I'm just going to wait till next year. I'm going to wait till next year.
Oh, goodness.
A lot of people, they're like, well, I want to see what's going to happen with rates. I want to see what's happening with pricing. And what they're going to find over time is rates might come down a little bit. I know I'm probably jumping a question or two, but rates might come down a little bit as the Fed's effect of their what they call demand destruction by raising their rates. You're going to see that affect consumers in first and second quarter. And as you see that, spending will drop, which will cause a recession, but not the kind of deep recession that you and I might be familiar with from
2008 timeframe, yeah.
So to answer your question, I know I kind of went roundabout there, is that the first quarter, I see first quarter being, you know, more of a normal market. And first quarter is typically not that strong. I see the demand starting to come back towards end of first quarter, second quarter, and having a really strong summer and even third and fourth quarter next year. So I think the year's going to start a little bit slow, kind of like we're at the momentum we are now, but you're going to see a lot of people come back to the marketplace.
All those people that have been sitting on the sidelines are waiting to see what happens. Are those the people that you're referring to?
They are. And as they see the rates trickle down a little bit, you're going to see the market just pile back in because that demand never left.
Right.
And the supply never increased to a point where pricing would drop because we have 4 to 5 times less listings on the market now than we had in 2008.
Wow.
So the supply is way lower and that demand is still there. It's just waiting to pile back in the market.
So with everyone on the edge of their seats waiting for rates to drop, Will they?
You know, rates have dropped a little bit already. You know, we're back down to under 7% for most loans, maybe even lower. You know, 5s and 6s. I can't quote rate now because, I don't know when you're going to watch this and rates are going to be all over the place. But rates are very reasonable right now, historically speaking. You know, when 2006, I think I paid 6.25% for my first home. And, I felt okay with that. You know, if you were in 2001, you might have paid 9 or 10%.
Right.
And if you were in 1980, you probably paid 16 or 17%.
And you were very happy about it.
Happy. That's what all the people I know that got loans back then said, But the reality is, I do think that demand is going to come back. I see the market. I don't think we're going to have a massive price decline in most markets. I do think there are some markets where people are just not going to run back to. I mean, those are I'd say some parts of California, some parts of New York, maybe some other parts around the country that just saw such a run up.
Right.
And they saw a run off of people because affordability was too low.
Okay.
In Florida, I think people are still moving here.
I think so too.
So I think we're in a good spot.
Especially with the weather.
With the weather.
What does that mean for seller concessions in the new year?
Well, so that's what I hear a lot of people saying, well, I'm going to wait till next year. I'm like, well, if you wait, what are you waiting for? Because right now you might not get a sale on the interest rate, but you might have a seller that's a little bit more flexible on their terms, right? They might be willing to pay some concessions. They might be willing to negotiate a little bit on that price. You probably won't pay over list, right? So you're going to pay a little bit higher in the interest rate, but you might save a little bit of money on those things. And I think, like I said, I think the seller's going to be a little bit more flexible now. That flexibility is going to go back toward, if you're more of a seller's market, that flexibility is going to go away to do things like pay closing costs or, pay the list price and not well over and things like that. I didn't know if that was answering your question.
Oh yeah, that definitely answers my question. It seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that it allows negotiations to kind of come back into play where it was absurd to have any kind of negotiations, last year.
Right. The sellers had their terms, and if you couldn't meet them, I'm sorry, we'll get the next person in line. They weren't wrong to do so.
Okay.
But now the sellers I've seen are a little bit more willing to negotiate on their terms. Not prices aren't going well under list or anything like that, but they're not going over list right now.
Okay. So with that being said, how do we guide our clients through the shift of this?
Well, I always, if it was me and if I was the agent and I was talking to the client, I'd just make sure the expectations were clear. Just like in April of 2022, the expectations had to be clear that, look, we're going to put a lot of offers out there.
Right.
And we're going to have to pay over list price. We're going to have to close super quick. So you got to be on the ball. I'm not saying those things don't persist because that's still going to help the client get the best deal. But, to set the expectations properly with the client, you might not get under list, but they might be flexible in some other things.
Okay. So will we see renters, because since those people are waiting on the sidelines and all of those buyers are either waiting for more inventory or waiting for rates to come down, will we see renters flocking into the market, and will there be an uptick, I guess you could say, in FHA loans?
I think we'll start, you said FHA last, so obviously I go right there. But FHA, people always consider that to be a first-time home buyer loan. FHA does not stand for first-time home buyer, okay?
I literally thought that's what it meant when I purchased my first home in 2009. I thought it stood for first-time home buyer.
FHA stands for Federal Housing Authority, okay? And so there's other programs like conventional 3% down. It's a lower down payment. FHA is a great loan for the right person, and the right person is typically someone that's credit challenged with a high debt to income that has a little to put down. But conventional loans for qualified borrowers are lower down payment and great rates, and you don't necessarily have to have mortgage insurance, unlike an FHA loan where you're going to have mortgage insurance. Long story short is that I think that people, the renters, some of them are going to flock to buy, and some won't. But the rent, there's still a shortage of housing any way you look at it. So rents aren't going to fall through the floor if all the renters go and buy, because there's still a shortage of rentals out there. I mean, you talk to any agent, finding someone a rental property right now is extraordinarily challenging in this market.
Would you say that the rental prices are higher than mortgages right now? I
think in order for you, if you're an investor and you go out and buy a property, that property has to cash flow. And if you have a mortgage on it, well, your rent's going to be higher than your mortgage in order for it to cash flow, right? Because they have an expense, the mortgage and some other things. And if they can't, cash flow means that their expenses are less than what they take in. Right.
Right.
So if you're let me give you an example. If the mortgage and expenses are $2,800 a month and you take in $3,000, well, that's a good cash flowing property. There's $200 a month to the positive. Well, it wouldn't make a lot of sense for investors to look at their costs and say, well, I'm going to rent it below my costs. Why would you do that?
Right.
So no, I think for it to make sense that rents have to be above what a mortgage would be, or people wouldn't be investors and do it.
Right. So how can we as industry professionals create value for our clients going forward into the new year?
As industry professionals, create value.
So between loan officers and also real estate agents, because a lot of the times we partner, we lock arms and we're kind of hand in hand in getting to the closing table. So with all of what you just said, how do we create value for our clients going forward as the professionals and the people that have the education and the knowledge?
Well, for sales, I have a 5 simple step process. It's, you got to build rapport with the client, right? But after you build rapport, it's educate. You have to educate your clients and give them all the education that they need. You can't assume they know anything. Not that they're dumb. They're probably very smart people, but they're not experts like you are. So give them the information, whatever you're talking about. If you're talking about the market, give them data to support what you're saying. If you're talking about, putting in offers and, you can show them how many listings are out there. I mean, the data and education is extraordinarily important. And finally, it's setting expectations. Because if their expectations are wildly mismanaged, that's your fault, right? It's our fault.
So don't overpromise and underdeliver?
No, do not do that. No, underpromise and overdeliver, okay?
Gotcha.
And so that's sometimes challenging because sometimes we fear that giving them the whole truth and setting expectations probably is going to lose the client.
Right.
But I'd rather lose a client by being honest than get one by not telling them the whole truth.
I feel like it actually builds more trust with them by giving them the good, the bad, and the ugly.
You have to.
Right.
Yeah, you have to.
Wonderful. Well, last question for you. A lot of loan officers, a lot of real estate agents are changing companies at year end. Why do we see that significant amount of change between loan officers and real estate agents, either changing brokerages or just making shifts in their personal careers? And will we continue to see that through 2023?
So when the market changes and the business changes, because that's what happened, there's a big shift, and the business came down for everybody. You always see people, they have a decision to make. It's, why am I in the seat? Okay. Is it because the market shifted? Is it because rates went up? Is it because I'm trying to do the same thing I did last year and get a different result for it this year? Right. Or trying to get the same result last year as I did this year, doing the same things. If you're doing the same thing you did in 2020 and 2021 as you did in 2022, you're probably having problems right now. Right. Because the market has shifted. If you didn't shift with the market and change your marketing strategy and how you market to people, because in 2020 and 2021, let's be honest, you could walk down the street and get hit with 8 people who wanted to buy a house.
Very true.
And you're
very
like,
true.
All you're trying to do is manage that chaos.
Right.
But now you have to go out and find those 8 people. And you're gonna find that some people want to still think it's 2020 and 2021. Now, that's one reason you might leave, is you're going to blame everybody except yourself. And I hate to be honest and say that.
But it's everybody else's fault, Joe, right?
It's always someone else's fault. Or you can always blame someone else, but it's always your fault, okay?
Right.
Or there's some legitimate reasons, I've talked to some people that are moving brokerages for very good reasons. They found something that better fits them. And so there's the one person that wants to blame all of their success and failure on someone. Oh, success they'll take credit for, but failure when they want to blame someone else. Okay, and we're all guilty of this. I'm not trying to make you feel bad if this is you, but sometimes you just got to look in the mirror and say, is it me? And if it is me, what can I do to improve?
So part of those New Year's resolutions then would be look in the mirror, decide if you like what you see,
right,
and make a plan for next year.
That's very hard. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
But the other reality is that some people found that their brokerage isn't right for them. And that's fine too. And they found a better program, something they think might work better for them, and they're going to give it a shot. And this is the time to do it, when business is at its lowest between, November, end of November and the beginning of February.
So it would actually behoove them to take a look at who their partners are, who they're working with, or maybe who their target demographic is that they're looking to hunt for next year for clients.
Yeah. Again, if you're a salesperson, either in mortgage and real estate space, I would use this time to plan and set your goals and how you're going to get there in 2023. I mean, that's really what's going to make the difference of having a super successful year and a marginal year. If you didn't plan, you don't expect the results if you don't have a plan to get there. And so we have another podcast we're going to be doing soon we're going to be talking about planning for your best year.
Wonderful. Well, I'll tune into that one.
Cool. Perfect.
Most important question of our podcast today, Christmas cookies.
Okay.
Your favorite, chocolate chip, sugar? I know, hard-pressing questions.
I love them all. I just had a chocolate pecan brownie before I came in here. It was absolutely delicious. But no, I'm more of a chocolate chip traditionalist, I would say.
Inquiring minds
don't
wanted
put
to
raisins
know.
in my cookies, please.
Yeah, that's just unheard of.
And don't try to sneak in fruit or healthy stuff into my cookies.
Sugar and carbs for Christmas all the way.
Thank you. I'll take them.
Lovely. Well, that about wraps it up. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Lindsay, for filling in. And look, if you found value in the things you saw today, please forward it on to someone that you think might benefit from it. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe, like, share, do all these things. We look forward to seeing you next time. Have a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and a Happy Holiday.
Happy New Year, guys.